Hello, everyone. I'm Craig Stover. I'm the Executive Director of Allen's Lane Art Center. Welcome to ArtShow. Today we have with us Nancy Agati. Thank you very much for coming.
Good evening.
Before we start, just want to let you know, Nancy and I are here maskless, but we put in a bunch of safety procedures. We have fans blowing on us, open windows, air filters, little social distancing, and the gin and tonic is also medicinal, so that helps as well. Right. So thank you very much for joining us. I do want to let everybody know that at the bottom of your screen, there is a chat feature. At the end of our little talk, we're going to be taking some questions from people. So if you have any questions for Nancy, just type them in at the bottom of the chat and my assistant will be able to give them to me. So thanks again for coming today.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it. I've been looking forward to this. I had the privilege of going to your studio and seeing work like as it was being produced. And I saw a lot of the other history stuff. So you pulled out some really gems for me. So I was excited to see all that.
Thank you.
But let's start at the beginning. How did your life begin in the arts? I mean, what lead me up to where you're at now? How did this all start?
Where do you want me to start? Like,
did you always know that you wanted to be an artist? What did it like click as an early age, or did you have a slow slide into it?
Okay. I would say that I think as a kid, I had it in my head that I wanted to be an artist. I drew, I painted, I made things. In 6th grade, I can remember discovering charcoal in a still life and thinking, I can draw that. This is great. But I would say that it sort of kicked in. Well, of course, then when in high school, I had the idea that I'm going to art school and tried to figure that out before the internet. But I think it kicked in when I moved to Philadelphia, and I really had kind of a quick experience of starting to show my work right away. I mean, I think within the first year, I had a piece that was shown at City Hall. And
is this while you were in school or
no,
out of
after school?
Okay, so you went to art school?
I went to art school.
Okay,
yes.
And where was that?
Alfred University.
Okay, nice.
College of Art and Design.
Oh, okay.
Which is known for its ceramics, and I did very little ceramics there. But it's also noted for quite a lot of other things. I pretty much was a painter and printmaker and did a lot of drawing. But I, and at Alfred, it was kind of a Bauhausy, experimental, pass-fail program, and you got to dapper with everything. So
do you think that really shaped you?
I think Alfred shaped me, yes, absolutely. I had excellent professors there, and it was a place of problem solving and figuring things out on your own. And I learned how to blow glass. I learned how to weld and cut metal. But at the same time, you then could do lithography and printmaking. I even did video in the 80s where the video pack.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
The camera was this big, and the bag that you carried with the tape
looked like the Ghostbusters.
Was at least 10 pounds over your shoulder. So, yeah.
So what made you choose Philadelphia?
Well, when I graduated from Alfred, I moved back home.
So you have family here?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I moved back home. I'm sorry. I'm from Syracuse.
Okay, all right.
I apologize. I worked on a road construction crew for about 8 months and made what then was a lot of money. And I actually got a studio in Syracuse for about 6 months after that. And I had a map pinned to my wall with pretty much, I think, the East Coast. And a friend sent me a letter in the mail saying, I have an apartment. It's 3 bedrooms. Do you want to move to Philadelphia? And I was like, and then this was a friend that I'd grown up with. And I was like, why not? So
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
so the studio that you're in is in Germantown.
Correct.
And
yes.
How many studios have you had? Have you always had that same one?
No, I've had that one since I've been at the Stenton Guild since 2008.
Okay.
So quite a long time.
Yeah.
I had studios in my home for quite a while, especially when my kids were young. And then I did have a studio at the Crane Building for a while when I was doing my MFA, getting ready for the MFA show. I built that at the Crane Building. So, and a
little bit of every spot within Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And I assume that you may agree with me that Philadelphia is not like 6 degrees of separation. It's more like 2 within the arts. You start to learn, because you move around different places and you start to learn all the different artists and the different things that kind of go around. So.
Yeah, but it's still growing, you know. So
quite so.
Meet new artists every day and connect with them. It's awesome.
So with talking about new artists, I actually want to back up for a minute. You were talking about the fact that you were exposed to lots of different artistic mediums, you know, glass blowing and printmaking. What I saw in your studio was primarily painting and drawing, I would say, with a little bit of printmaking. So out of all of the different methods, what was that, just like a natural thing, or was it a conscious decision that you wanted to move in that direction?
Well, I do a lot a different things. Okay. It's just that
I only saw a small piece.
You only saw some of them. I think when I got my MFA at UArts, and when I got accepted to UArts, I was like, I'm a painter and I know what I want to do and don't want them to mess me up. So I'm going in as a painter, and within 3 weeks I was doing everything.
Okay.
And I think that really shaped me too, because it allowed me to be brave enough to experiment with different materials. So I do installations, I've done community public art projects, I've done sculpture, but a lot of the things I do that are 3-dimensional are ephemeral. They're temporary. They don't last for long. You know, I have yet to build an enormous Richard Serra type steel sculpture. So
where would you put it?
Yeah, exactly. And I like the fact that things don't last. I mean, that's part of the reason I work on paper. Is that I enjoyed that idea that nothing lasts forever.
Right.
So,
well,
but at the same time, to answer your question, I do gravitate more to drawing, and I actually think of my paintings
as drawings. Yes. That seems like a natural statement coming from you, especially the work that I've seen, that I do see drawing as the foundation for the majority of your work.
Right. And I would say that drawing's the foundation for my sculpture
as well.
Yeah.
I need to become more acquainted with your sculpture. I am not familiar enough. Do you have samples of that up on your website? Okay. I just didn't dig deep enough, I guess.
That's okay. I just have been rebuilding it in the last 2 weeks. So,
all right.
Yeah, it's not done yet.
Well, you know, what always attracted me to your work was the wide variety of mark making that you have. You've clearly developed your own language over the years, and I can see that maybe these other disciplines help foster that. And I'm just curious, are you conscious of the wide variety of marks that you have available?
Probably not.
Okay. Because you do, it's a crazy question because, and it's hard for me to ask, because when I look at your work, I do see that you have, for each piece, a set of rules that you've adopted, that you're going to use X number of colors, and you're within a very specific palette range, and even just the size is very general. So as much as it would seem loose, I also see it as extremely tight at the same time. Is that how you approach the work? Is it?
I think it's how it develops.
Okay.
In a way, I am conscious of the marks because the marks come from specific things. Like, for instance, speaking of sculpture, I've made a lot of sculptural pieces from invasive vines. And those invasive vines then influence the marks that I'm making in a drawing or a painting.
Interesting.
And sometimes I'm projecting and tracing. And actually, just recently, I'm working on a piece right now. And I'm like, why am I waiting till it gets dark to project this? You know how to draw. So I just put what I wanted to look at on the wall and just, and it was actually much more freeing to be able to do that. So sometimes I want it to be exact of this shape that I have.
Right.
And so I will project it, and other times I'm drawing. And actually right now, the next sort of version of this, which is the Undercurrent series, I have been collecting, I've been collecting graphs from the New York Times. So either economic graphs about what is going on economically and the bias and the ups and downs of everybody's experience, and also the unfortunate coronavirus graphs.
Well, let me.
So that will those will be marks that I make in that piece.
Like a found mark, kind of.
A found mark,
right?
Yes. And not necessarily an exactly accurate mark.
Right. Well,
so a general graph instead of a.
Talk to me about your methodology, because what I'm curious now. On my way here, I was thinking about this. When you approach a piece, I find that artists tend to fall in one of two categories. They either, have a plan, or they plan stuff out, or they kind of go with a lot of experimentation. And sometimes there's a hybrid of both. So I'd be curious to know, where do you think you fit in on that? How much planning is involved in what you do, and how much do you let go of the plan, if at all?
I usually, okay. I'm trying to think of a specific series, because I work in a lot of different series, and I tend to work on different things at the same time. So with this body of work, the Undercurrent series, they were very loosely planned until the one I'm working on now, where I have 8 studies, and I've never done that before. And it's actually been really such a different experience to make studies of what I think the bigger painting is going to look like. It might not. I started working on the larger one just this week, and the difference of how you work on something that's on the table and this big and as big as this is completely different. So it's, but at the same time, like I have a series called Portico Series, and it started with I had a residency in Italy. I was walking through Rome. My residency was in southern Italy, but I had a couple days in Rome, and I walked by this door, and there was this really interesting carved panel, and I took a picture of it. And then I got to Calabria, and I got in the studio, and where do I start? And so I flipped through my phone, and I found that picture, and I started with that shape, and it ended up being a series of, I don't know, maybe 24, 32 different patterns based on the repetition and movement of that shape. And, I did one, and I was like, whoa. And I did another one. And then pretty soon it was like, well, how many variations can I get from just this one shape? So sometimes things like that will lead the work, but it's not, and that was more planned as like, I'd take out the sheet of paper and I'd make a bunch of points, and this shape has to hit those points certain, and then of course you make the rules and you break them.
Right, of course. So. As you should. Right. I mean, the experimentation process really requires that.
Right.
Don't you think?
Right. So I actually am working on a series right now that's similar. I have a shape that I had a template of that stuck in a drawer for at least 4 years, and I pulled it out. And I just looked at it and thought, let's see how different this can get, or how similar they can be, but be different colors or different texture or different line. So
I do see that in your work. I see you pushing ideas each time to the next level, and I think that's part of the enjoyment. And the one part that I would love, I think I need more time to look at your work, which is, I have a feeling you mentioned graphs and things that you pull out from New York, the idea of sort of hiding things within the work and letting them slowly come out to the viewer. I think I saw glimpses of it. Is that something that you do? Is it intentional, or is it just more for you to do it just to see what happens?
I don't know if it's hiding as much as I'm interested in layers.
Okay.
And just overlapping and overlapping and overlapping, seeing in depth, seeing how deep that can get, seeing what will be revealed, what will be concealed.
Well, I guess when I say hiding, so say you use these graphs, is your intention to eventually obliterate the graph, or are you happy that there may be people that would recognize that?
I don't know yet, because that one's it's still in a phase, and the pieces that are the tests right now only have 3 graphs within them. And I think part of it is that line is very similar to lines that I take from patterns in water or patterns in trees, or wherever I'm getting those other kinds of lines. So I don't know if, I feel like right now, because of what's going on in society, that I want that graph to represent a graph at some point, but I haven't figured out how to push it enough so that the viewer will see it, because like I said, it just started.
Well, I look forward to seeing what happened. Now I'm going to be looking for it, so make sure you guys look for it too. Do you ever destroy your work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've thrown away some things.
Do you ever rework your work?
Yes.
Yeah. Which would you say you do more of? Or is about even? Not really.
No, I would say I rework something, or I just keep it.
Yeah. Use it back.
Yeah. I had a painting that I actually did in the studio that I rented in Syracuse, and then I did another painting when my kids were little, that was based on this tree that we saw in Yosemite. That was this dead tree at the top of a mountain. And I got rid of both of those paintings, and now I wish I hadn't. So
they're up here at least.
They are. They still exist in my brain.
Yeah. But, no photographs?
Slides.
Oh, that'll keep.
Yeah, I guess I can take it somewhere and make it into an image. But
so tell me about. I tend to find that a lot of the artists that I know tend to, either whether consciously or subconsciously, look at other artists' work. So you may have some favorite artists or some new artists. So do you actively look at other artwork, or are you just focused on your own? What?
Yes, I actively look at other artwork. Sometimes I just focus on my own.
All right. Well,
so it depends on
recently?
what. Recently, just in the last month and a half, I started looking at Bryce Marden again, which I've looked at his work before, but as you can see.
Right. The early or the late work?
Actually, I saw his show. I'm trying to remember if it was, I'm pretty sure it was at MoMA, but it might have been at the Whitney. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it was at MoMA. So I saw a recent show of his. I mean, it was like in the last maybe 6 years. I'm not really sure. So I've been looking at sort of the middle and late stuff and just reading. And of course, you go on YouTube and you can watch interviews with him. And I do have a book of his early stick
gorgeous
drawings.
Black Mountain College is when he developed it with the little
So I was
drip
just looking at that the other night. So I've been going back to that. And of course, you know, you go on the internet and you look up one artist and it leads to another. So then I stumbled upon Terry Winters, who I also am familiar with and had seen his work at, I think it's the Matthew Marks Gallery, but never really made that connection. And then I just was like, whoa, this is perfect for what I'm thinking about right now. So I haven't really read a lot about him. I've just looked at the images.
Okay.
And another artist because I'm interested in layers, I've been looking at Julie Meritou.
I don't know her work.
So
Okay, that's one for me to look up.
Yeah, she does these enormous, very abstract paintings, of which she says are about society and architecture and line. And in between each layer, she has kind of this very smooth surface of some kind of acrylic mix of just, you just want to touch it. And I'm like, how do I do that? And I can't do it. I can't do it on paper, but I do work where I'll mount paper to panel. And then that way I have a hard surface so I can build up the surface more. So I'm sort of thinking about, you know, and one of the pieces I'm working on right now is the lines. I like make a layer and then I try to make it less visible and then et cetera, et cetera.
So it sounds to me like you're not only fascinated by the work, but it sounds like you do what I do, which is like, oh, that technique, I need to borrow that or this and that and figure out how to incorporate that. And I can see the layers. I know you think in almost in layers, so how you're going to attack or make that image. To me, that's very exciting.
Yeah. Actually, I have a friend who posted a picture of, he took just a shot of some water along a creek and the way the light was hitting it. And I just, he put it on Instagram and I'm like, I'm stealing this, you know. He's like, please do. You know?
Did you ever, I got absorbed in that with Hockney's, his reflections of the water.
Hockney was probably my jumping off point in which I quit a job and started making art. And that was the first show that I had here, was in 2000.
Yeah, so now that's the first line of your monograph. I quit a job to pursue art.
Well, I had done a David Hockney study with the students, and it's a very long story. I was unhealthy at the time as well, and had just sort of gone back to work. And then I'm watching these kids paint water with yummy acrylic paint. I'm like, oh my God, I gotta go home. You know, I have to do this too. So.
Yeah. So it sounds like you have a mix of both flashes of ideas as well as like working on it. So it sounds like you combine the two. Yeah, and I can see that in the work, in the different sort of layers, a thinking layer and a experimental layer, sort of.
I feel like right now I have more time to think. Which was kind of nice.
Yeah. How has the pandemic affected your work?
Well, this piece got a lot darker and busier and frenetic than I thought it was going to be.
Aside from this piece, have they all pursued that, you think, or
no?
Just within the pandemic?
Not all. And actually it's kind of been a back and forth where some work that I've been doing has been almost like I'm looking for calm and order and beauty and just like I need to make something that's just pleasant and enjoyable to make. And I've been doing that as well. So it's kind of, I go back and forth between like,
it's very 2020.
Yes.
Very manic kind of a thing.
I can't decide.
So I do want to talk about this piece. Before I do that, I do want to remind people in the bottom of the screen, the chat, we're going to be taking a few questions. So please feel free. So tell me, what did you bring me today? What am I looking at here?
Okay, so this is entitled Undercurrent Rift. And the Undercurrent series, I think, began in 2016.
Okay.
And I was using imagery of water, and also I had been looking at a lot of patterns of lace. After my residency in Italy, I came back with a lot of ideas about lace patterning. That was one of the things I was.
Water and lace, that's a perfect description. You got the water that flows however it wants, and lace that has to be made.
Right. So well, and also the interesting thing, just to sidetrack, when I went to Campania, which is the region that my mother's families from. And my mother was the one who collected all these doilies. And I got a tour of the lace artisans, and the style of lace there is called tombolo, and the things that influence what they put in the imagery are the roads, the ancient roads especially, and the plant life, and something else I'm not remembering what it was. But so the kind of organic shapes that I was seeing in that were in these paintings. And
so they're all sort of subtitled. So this one's Rift, but there's others. That
there's Undercurrent 1 and 2.
Okay, creative.
Those were the first two. There's one that's Celeste, which is much more kind of center focused and comes out and almost looks like a universe. And
are they all this size?
Approximately, yes.
Okay, and what's the materials?
This is black paper. It's I think I had some that were on Arches black, but this is Stonehenge, because it's really hard to find rolls of black paper right now. And I make my own pigments with clay and slate. Not solely, but a lot of them. And I'll mix it with an acrylic base, and I'll put inks in it, or iridescent inks to make it the color.
When you do that, do you have to fix the picture afterwards in any way?
I'll put a layer of another, like usually a satin acrylic over the top. But sometimes I have one that I did, which I put, I thought a little bit too glossy varnish on. But then after about 6 months of sitting there, it kind of calmed down. So now I like it.
Sorry, it's a little technical geek talk there,
no,
I'm
good.
curious in these.
Good. I mean, this one, actually, I was looking at it today before I brought it over, and I'm like, I wonder if this should get a little bit of a sheen. So I haven't decided yet. So what was your other question?
So, well, I can't remember what the other question was, but so we talked about the size and sort of the shape you always usually do. I saw some square shapes and some rectangular shapes. So are all in the series, do you tend to stay within the same shape?
Yes.
Okay.
Usually.
That's curious.
Yes.
And so this piece is now finished?
Yes.
Would you say?
Except for maybe a sheen.
And then, so do you mount the paperworks on a board, or do you just have them framed out? Depending on the client.
If a client buys it, they will frame it. So two of them are in the collection at Parktown Place.
Oh, okay.
And they are framed there. So, yes.
Framing is just so expensive nowadays.
They framed it.
Oh, that's nice. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Okay. So it doesn't look like we have any questions. People, apparently we've answered all the questions.
Oh, good.
So I still have a couple more about this.
Sure.
You know, one of the questions that I think people often, they ask me all the time is talk about time period, like how fast or how slow you work. And based on what I've seen in your studio, I generally assume you're rather quick in what you do. So from start to finish, would you say that you have an average like time span that you spend on a piece?
Depending on the size and detail.
Yeah. I mean, it means nothing in terms of the end product,
right.
But
I don't, if it's going to be years, it probably will never get done.
Okay.
So, you know, I think this was probably over a month, maybe 2 months.
Okay.
Start to finish.
All right.
But not working on it day after day after day, you know, like coming and going. And,
do you have a regular studio practice when you're working on something like this? Do you zone out? Do
I get in the flow?
Yeah. Do you put on classical music and you have to have your bowl of chips or something? Is there things that you do habitually, or is it?
I do listen to music. I sometimes listen to podcasts.
Okay.
Sometimes they distract me. Sometimes they inspire me.
Sometimes I find
sometimes
artists need something.
I do one. Yeah, actually, yes. I have one ritual, which is, and this, I had a fellowship in 2014 where I was sent on meditation retreats. And the idea was that, figure out how meditation and your work can speak to each other. So since then, and actually I was doing it a little bit before, but since then I will get to my studio and listen to a guided meditation and then sit for 10, 15, 20 minutes.
You're the third person to tell me this month that they've gone on a retreat like this.
I've done 4 or 5.
Wow.
The first one was, wow.
Yeah, you're the first one that said it actually took, right? So I'm curious.
Well, I mean, it was like meditation by fire, honestly. It was, I got flown to somewhere in the middle of Colorado, and you sat for 45 minutes and walked for 15 and sat for 45.
Okay.
And then there was a talk, and then you ate in silence, and then you sat some more. And I lasted about a week, and then I was like, I gotta go now.
Enough of that.
So, but yeah, it helps. It just helps to center me when I get to the studio. And actually the other day I got to the studio and I just breathed this sigh of relief of just like, oh, thank God I'm here. Yeah. So.
Yeah, you need that studio. It's almost like, it's like food for the soul, I find. Yeah.
We have a question.
We actually got a question.
Okay. Somebody wants to know about the fly on my head.
Right. Yeah. There. You said you don't want things to last, or that they're temporary. How do you hope your work will be remembered? That's deep. Do we have enough time for that?
I don't know. Well, I don't really know if I'll be in art history books for the rest of eternity.
This interview will.
Yes. And anything I post on the internet.
Right, of course.
So there we go. I think that the things that I make that will last, if they are in someone's home and they carry on, it might not be 500 years, but it might be.
They could vacuum seal it. Who knows?
Really know. Yeah. But with the sculptural stuff, it's been more of I don't know if I want to say event, but they have been events. They've been workshops where people have carved wood, or where I've built something out of vines and it's up for 3 days and then it comes down and everything goes back to where it was. I did a floating piece on the Delaware for the Flow exhibit last October, and not only will it not last there, it had to come out of the water, and it sunk while it was there because the tide went up and down 6 feet a day. So a lot of things that people put in the water did not remain where they thought they were. And so
I'm always reminding students that nothing lasts. Everything fades. My car fades, from the sun, and Mona Lisa faded.
I think at one point I started making really tiny paintings, and I got to this point when I did that was like, I don't want to fill up so much space anymore, and I don't want to have to lug so much stuff. So the whole body of work fit in these 3 small black boxes.
I went through a tiny phase myself. I got
it. And it was great.
I did 3x5 cards, so I totally know what you mean. So we did get one more question.
Okay. I don't know if I answered the other.
Yes, you did. I thought it was an excellent answer, actually. Can you describe more how you make the paints with pigments?
Sure.
So do you have like a garden in your house that you take, or do you go out into the Fairmount Park, or where do you get your materials from?
Okay, so
as a start for the question.
It started with our neighbor's roof was made out of slate, and they had it taken down, and I collected all the slate, and then I was cutting it and noticed that you have to cut the slate with a tile cutter that uses water, so all the sludge was pouring. I collected all the sludge and I let it sit. And the next thing I knew, I was like, whoa, this is such a beautiful feel. And you know, if you look in a paint store, you can actually buy chalkboard paint. Well, they use slate in that paint. They also use tons of chemicals. But part of my reasoning for doing this was to kind of get away from using a lot of solvents. And the other thing was that I really like, I use clay a lot. So I'll collect clay. Sometimes like I have a big clump of clay that I dug out of the ground in Reading, Pennsylvania. And it's like this yellowy orange. And, you know, I'm not very good with colors, but that color is great. So, so I'll let it dry and then I'll wet it. And when I wet it, I send it through a series of sieves so that it gets smoother. And sometimes I use it really chunky as well, but, and then I'll mix it with a little bit more pigment, maybe. If I want it to shimmer, I might put some gold ink in it. If not, if I want to change it or warm it, I'll add something. But with the clay, when you put underglaze on greenware and you don't put your 3 even coats, you just put one, you can see those brush strokes. And I really never like it on clay, but there's something that I really enjoy about that on paper. And actually, if you can't really see it on this, but the drips, this is clay based paint. And when the drips dry, you see all the little crackles of, and like the stream of the water going through it. And I
So what you're telling me, just like an Ives Klein blue in the future, people will say, "Oh, that's Nancy Sludge."
Yeah.
That's patent pending. Like
that's
right. You could bottle that and make a thing.
So I have different. I have like all these little containers. Like this is Chesapeake paint. I found this down by the Chesapeake. This clump of clay that I crushed up. And
nice. I'm going to be starting to look for those now. That's going to be every question I ask. Where does this color come from? Yeah, that's great.
I don't know if I always know. I can tell you that the grays in this are have a lot of slate. You know?
Well, it's a wonderful piece. And I want to encourage everybody out there, if you haven't been yet, please make sure to visit Nancy's website, the new and improved one that's there or coming.
Come next week.
Come next week. And are you on social media at all or anything like that?
Instagram.
Instagram,
yes.
Okay.
And Agati 12.
Okay.
Yep.
Just encourage you to check that out. Reach out to her, ask questions. People are often afraid to even ask questions of artists. I don't know why. And then, of course, the next step logically is to contact her and go make a studio visit and see the work for yourself.
And then come to my show if and when it ever happens here.
That's fantastic. When we open back up. So, well, I want to thank you for coming today. I really appreciate it. The work is fantastic. I'm loving this new series. I can't wait to see what's next.
All right.
So thank you very much for coming.
You.
And I want to thank everybody out there. Tune in next week. Leo Sewell, we swinging by. And thank you very much. allenslane.org, and let us know if you have any questions. Thank you very much. Good. How you feel?